The council chamber of the Orion Accord Station was built to impress predators and kings alike, a vast hall of obsidian panels, silver-edged banners, and the faint hum of the station's artificial gravity cores. Delegates from a dozen worlds filled the arc of raised seats, their voices a low churn of speculation. Everyone knew who was coming. Everyone but one man looked uneasy. Elias Kane stood alone at the central table, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the main entrance. His reflection in the black floor showed a tall, lean man in a tailored dark green diplomat's coat, silver threads glinting along the seams. The scar across his jaw caught the light when he turned his head slightly, as though the room itself remembered how close war had come to burning through his world. A tremor rippled through the floor. The air shifted, temperature dropping by a fraction as the great gate split open. A shadow stepped in, then filled the hall. Kazar Vac, supreme predator of the Ziran Dominion, entered with the weight of a collapsing mountain. His frame was a melding of dark alloy and sinew, 7.5 feet tall, spine ridged with metallic spines, his skull an elongated dome of matte chitin. Each step left a low scrape as clawed feet met the polished obsidian. Delegates instinctively leaned away. A whisper of robes, a shuffle of boots, a silence that had weight. Only Kane did not move. The predator's molten amber eyes settled on him. For a heartbeat, nothing passed between them. Just a measure, one predator in his own right, one survivor. Kay Zarvak's lips peeled back to reveal serrated bone teeth. "You stand," the predator rumbled, voice resonating through the hall. The others kneel. Kane let a breath slip through his nose. "We have a different custom," he said evenly. A ripple of disapproval moved through the chamber, not just from the Ziran entourage, but from the allied counselors themselves. The human's tone was not hostile, yet it was not deferential either. Kazar Vac took another step forward, lowering his head until rows of his inner eyes flickered in a predatory pattern. Humanity was given a choice once: submission or extinction. You chose war. You bled, you burned, you survived. Barely. Now you stand here, a lone emissary, and you think the galaxy has forgotten? Kane did not blink. "We remember more than enough for both of us." The predator tilted his head, a subtle movement for such a massive frame. "Then hear this. The Dominion does not share power. It corrects the weak. Your colonies encroach upon our ancient paths. Your fleets bristle like cornered prey. This council wishes to spare you. I say, surrender your fleets, dismantle your defenses, kneel in the old way, and perhaps your species will live long enough to learn obedience." The words settled like iron in the room. Several diplomats exchanged quick glances. The Trinari delegate adjusted her translation, node with a faint hiss. Kane, however, simply folded his hands before him. "You speak of obedience," he said quietly. "Is that why you came in person? To watch a world kneel?" Kazar Vac's jaw shifted, a faint mechanical click. "I came because your kind intrigues me. Most prey breaks when cornered. You fight. You survive when logic says you should not. That anomaly deserves my attention." The chamber's lights dimmed fractionally as the station adjusted for the predator's energy field. Kane felt the familiar tension along his spine, the primal urge to step back, to give the predator what he demanded: space, submission, anything to escape the weight of his presence. But that was how the Zirans ruled. Through presence. He stayed exactly where he was. A Saran counselor, delicate limbs trembling slightly, spoke up from a gallery. "Ambassador Kane, perhaps a preliminary concession would demonstrate." "No." Kane's voice cut through the air, sharp enough to still the hall. He did not raise it, but it carried. Kazar Vac let out a sound that was almost laughter, low, grinding. "You refuse before we begin?" "I decline to start by crawling," Kane said, eyes still locked with the predators. "If you want dialogue, we'll have dialogue. If you want surrender, you already know our answer." The predator's gaze narrowed, then shifted slightly, scanning Kane as if the man were a specimen on a slab. "Curious," he murmured, though the word in his native tongue carried undertones of hunger and calculation. "You remind me of the ones who detonated their own fleet rather than let us claim it. They burned the stars around them. Does your species still honor such madness?" Kane's fingers twitched once behind his back, then stilled. We honor what it took to survive. Silence followed, long enough that the hum of the station's atmospheric filters seemed loud. At last, Kaziervak straightened. Then I will watch you, human. I will see how long your silence lasts. Prey that does not flee often tastes the richest. He turned, cloak of dark membranes rippling faintly as his escorts followed him from the chamber. The massive gates sealed once more, leaving the faint tremor of his presence behind like the aftertaste of ozone. A Trinari aide exhaled hard, breaking the stillness. "You've just made him curious," she said in a low tone, approaching Kane as the delegates began to file out. Curiosity in a predator like that is more dangerous than anger. Kane allowed himself a faint smile, not of triumph, but of grim acknowledgement. Then at least he's not bored. The aide's frilled crest fluttered anxiously. "What's your plan, Ambassador?" "We don't have the fleets to fight another war." Kane finally turned from the empty gates, the echo of claws still fading in the hall. "No," he said, "but we have something they don't." "And what's that?" she pressed. He looked back toward the reflection of his scar in the obsidian floor, the whisper of old fires behind his eyes. Time and patience. The council chamber emptied in fragments, robes sweeping, translators muttering, security drones humming overhead. Elias Kane lingered at the center, his reflection still etched into the dark floor where the predator had towered moments ago. The faint trace of scorched metal lingered in the air, the residue of the Zirin leader's presence. When the door sealed, Kane exhaled once. Not relief, calculation. The predator had shown his hand too early. Arrogance disguised as diplomacy, dominance masquerading as peace. He stepped into the adjoining corridor, its walls a cold lattice of alloy and dim starlight. The Trinari aide from earlier, Kethra, hurried beside him, her translucent crest shifting in restless patterns. "You didn't yield an inch," she said, voice low, almost accusing. "Do you realize what that means?" Kaziervak doesn't forget defiance. "I didn't come here to be remembered for courtesy," Kane replied, eyes forward. "I came to prevent another war." Kethra's crest stiffened. "And if your defiance provokes one?" Kane stopped by a viewport, the dying star outside flickering pale against the void. Fleets drifted in disciplined silence beyond. The council security, the predator's black-armored vessels like serrated shadows. "Provoking a predator isn't the same as attacking one," he said. "Sometimes it's the only way to make them pause." Later, in his assigned quarters, a stark module of steel and muted light, Kane accessed a sealed archive. The hollow display flickered to life, projecting rows of names and images. Fallen colonies, burned skies, ships swallowed whole in the last war. He scrolled past each record with a detached precision, though every name burned like a coal beneath the surface. He remembered one in particular, Cressida 4. The planet had been evacuated too late. The Zirins had not bombarded it. They had landed, tearing cities apart claw by claw, proving their strength not with orbital fire, but with the terror of presence. Kane had been a strategist then, stationed on a different front, powerless to intervene. He closed the archive. That was when the chime sounded, a single, heavy tone, not a council request. Zirin summons. The Predator's private chamber was a cathedral of bone metal and dim cerulean light. Ribs of ancient starship hull formed the walls. The air tasted faintly of ozone and some musky organic undertone. Kaziervak waited at the center, massive frame perched on what could only loosely be called a throne. His claws drummed lightly against the armrest as Kane approached. There were no guards this time, only the Predator and the human, a gulf of instinct between them. "You came alone," Kaziervak observed, voice a rumble. "That is either courage or desperation." "It's necessity," Kane said, standing 3 meters away. "You wanted a conversation." "I'm here." The Predator's head inclined slightly, mechanical plates shifting along his neck. "Do you know why your kind irritates my dominion? It is not your weapons. It is your audacity. You are small, untempered, yet you bleed our fleets and refuse to vanish." Kane met his gaze. "We learned to survive predators long before you arrived." A low growl, amused, not hostile, "And yet you seek peace." "I seek survival without submission," Kane corrected. The predator leaned forward, the dim light tracing the network of scars along his chest plate. Old, deep, layered with history. Our law is simple. The weak serve the strong. Your council pretends that equality exists. I know better. Kane said nothing. Kazarvak's claws stilled. Do you think silence unsettles me? I think it forces you to keep talking, Kane replied, voice steady. And the more you talk, the more I learn. For a long moment, neither moved. The predator's inner eyes flickered, an instinctive tell. One Kane filed away. You carry no weapon, Kazarvak finally said. Your body bears no toxins, no hidden fangs. Yet you walk among predators without fear. Why? Because fear is a shield, Kane said. It's bait. The predator let out a sound, half snarl, half laughter, that rattled the chamber's walls. You think yourself clever, human. Cleverness only delays the teeth. Sometimes delaying them is enough. Kazarvak stood, and for a moment the chamber seemed smaller. Your council wants a treaty. I want obedience. There is a difference. I noticed, Kane said. So what happens when neither of us gets exactly what we want? The predator stepped closer, the shadow of his frame swallowing Kane's reflection on the polished floor. Then I decide which of your colonies burns first. Kane's heartbeat did not change. You've tried that path before, and you bled for it. And survived, Kane said. The predator's head tilted again, the same motion as before, the one that betrayed curiosity beneath menace. You're either very brave or already dead inside. Kane allowed a faint flicker of a smile. Perhaps both. When Kane left the chamber, the corridors seemed colder. Kethra waited near the lift, her crest trembling. He didn't kill you, she said, more statement than question. No, Kane answered. Not yet. Why goad him alone? The council would have sent a chorus of apologies and left us with nothing. Kane cut in. Predators don't hear apologies. They hear intent. Kethra looked at him with narrow, luminous eyes. And what intent did you give him? Kane pressed the lift control. The doors whispered open. That were not prey. As the lift ascended, the void stretched beyond the transparent shaft. A field of stars and the predator fleet, silent and sharp as a waiting blade. Kane studied them, jaw tight. He had not told the council his full plan. He would not. They wanted compromise. He carried something else. Patience sharpened into a weapon. The predator thought he was here to bargain. That was his first mistake. The Orion Accord station orbited in its fixed path, a black crown against the dim glow of the dying star. Rumors moved faster than the station's data streams. By the third day, the story of the human who refused to bow had reached every corridor, every trading hall, every observation deck. Some admired the audacity. Others whispered that Earth had signed its own death warrant. Elias Kane walked those corridors with a calm face and a restless mind. He felt the eyes on him. Diplomats cloaked in courtesy, aides whispering behind folded screens, alien guards weighing his steps. The council had called for another session that evening. It would not be gentle. Kethra intercepted him outside the grand chamber, crest dimmed in warning. They want concessions, she said quietly. The Trinari bloc is pressing for withdrawal from the contested sectors. They think it will calm him. Kane glanced at her, expression unreadable. Appeasement doesn't calm predators. It signals where to bite next. She lowered her voice. Then what are you signaling? That we don't move first. The chamber was crowded this time. Delegates filled every tier, their holographic banners casting a pale glow of the floor. The Ziran entourage occupied the northern section like a shadow cliff, motionless save for the faint tremor of breathing plates. At their center, Kazarvak sat, massive arms resting on his knees, eyes burning with intent that could pierce steel. Kane stepped into the center circle. Murmurs rippled through the hall, then faded as the presiding counselor called the session to order. The matter of the disputed sectors, the council began, remains unresolved. Ambassador Kane, the council urges progress. Supreme Predator Kazarvak has requested immediate resolution. Kazarvak leaned forward slightly. Your fleets squat on ancient paths. Your colonies feed on ground not yours to keep. I tire patient words. Kane clasped his hands behind his back. Then perhaps it is time to speak with clarity. The Predator's jaw flexed, faint, metallic. Clarity is simple. Leave, disarm, or be removed. The chamber tightened around those words. A dozen species shifted uncomfortably, their representatives flicking through silent translations. Kane let the weight hang, then spoke. "We fought you before," he said. "We bled, yes, but we remain. If removal was so simple, you wouldn't be here speaking." A low ripple of sound passed through the Ziran delegation. Not outrage, not yet, but a stir of old hunger. Kazarvak's eyes narrowed. "You mistake endurance for strength." "I don't," Kane said. "I mistake your threats for inevitability." The Predator rose, the chamber lights catching the ridges of his frame. "You play with words while your people wait for death?" Kane turned his head slightly, scanning the watching tears. "My people have waited before, and they learned something you haven't." The Predator's voice deepened, a vibration that made the banners quiver. "And what is that?" "That survival isn't about how loud you roar," Kane said. "It's about making sure your enemies never hear the roar coming." A silence followed, one that felt heavier than any shout. The words were not shouted. They didn't need to be. They landed like a blade turned edge first on a table. Controlled, deliberate. Kazarvak's claws tightened against his knees. "Are you threatening me, human?" "I'm reminding you," Kane said. "Your dominion prides itself on hunting, but you mistaken silence for weakness before." The Predator's eyes flickered, the inner pair narrowing as if focusing at a different depth. For the first time, the threat in his posture shifted into something sharper. Interest. The counselor's voice broke the tension, brittle as glass. "Ambassador Kane, this is a forum for negotiation, not provocation." "I am negotiating," Kane replied. "I am asking for what humanity has asked since the war ended. Recognition of our right to exist without kneeling." Several delegates murmured approval. Others hid their expressions behind shimmering veils. The balance in the room tilted, not by force, but by the refusal to step back. Kazarvak rose fully now, towering over his assembly. His shadow stretched across the chamber floor like a spear. "You think your calm word will save you?" he asked. "No," Kane said. "I think they will make you listen." After the session, the corridors thrummed with restrained chaos. Data streams carried fragments of the exchange to distant sectors, each retelling reshaping the moment. Some saw defiance, others folly. Kane walked alone for a while before Kethra caught up. Her crest flickered between disbelief and reluctant admiration. "You are feeding his obsession," she said. "Every word you speak makes him study you more." "Good," Kane said without slowing. "Obsession is a form of hesitation." She fell into step beside him. "The council won't hold if this escalates. They'll fracture, retreat, leave you standing alone." Kane finally stopped at an observation slit, a thin band of transparent alloy that framed the Predator fleet outside. The ships were motionless, like coiled beasts, their silhouettes arrayed against a fading star. "I don't need the whole council," he said. "I need time." Kethra folded her arms, crest dimmed. "Time for what?" Kane didn't answer. Not yet. That night, the station's artificial dusk cast the halls in muted blue. Kane worked alone in his quarters, reviewing encrypted transmissions. His fingers traced coordinates across a holographic projection. Colonies along the disputed border. Supply chains stretched thin. Defense lines already adjusted. Every concession the council considered would expose another wound. The door chimed. He didn't turn. Enter. A shadow crossed the threshold. Not Kethra, not a council aide. A Ziran envoy, armored in dark plates that gleamed faintly under the light. "The Blood Lord watches you," the envoy rasped. "He wonders why you do not beg." Kane shut the projection with a flick of his hand. Begging never kept teeth away. The envoy tilted its head. "He will come to you again. When he does, choose your words carefully." Kane met its gaze. "I already have." The envoy hissed softly, then withdrew, leaving only the fading scent of ozone and iron. Kane sat back, hands steepled, eyes fixed on the empty doorframe. The predator was watching, yes, but watching meant waiting, and waiting meant the first step had already been taken. He would not roar. He would not kneel. He would wait longer. The summons came without ceremony, a coded pulse in the station's secure channel, marked with the seal of the Ziran Dominion. Kane expected it. The predator had circled long enough. Kethra caught him at the airlock, her crest folded flat. "You're walking into his lair," she warned. "He'll make an example of you." "He'll try," Kane replied. "But a predator that invites you to its den is already thinking." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a rasp. "If you die, they'll call it proof of his strength. If you live, they'll call it luck. Either way, the council will collapse." Kane adjusted the clasp of his coat. "Then we won't leave them either excuse." The Ziran flagship grave maw loomed like a midnight reef, its hull ridged with ancient scars. Docking clamps seized a human shuttle with mechanical precision, locking it into the predator's domain. Inside, the air was denser, rich with the scent of metal and something older, oil over bone. Hallways arched like the ribcage of a great beast, lit by veins of pulsing amber. 2 escorts led him to the core hall. No weapons were taken. None were needed. The predator trusted in his presence alone. Kazarvak awaited him at the center, a figure of obsidian muscle and alloy sinew, seated on a dais carved from the bones of extinct titans. Around him, a circle of lesser warlords loomed in silence, their armor etched with the glyphs of past hunts. "You came," Kazarvak said, voice carrying like distant thunder. "You invited me," Kane answered, stepping into the light. The predator leaned forward. "I could end you now. One motion. No council to shield you, no fleet to mourn you. Your species would break before my shadow." Kane looked up, calm as still water. "Then why haven't you?" A low growl rolled through the hall, half laughter, half threat. "Because I want to understand. You speak as though you hold a blade I cannot see." Kane moved closer until the glow of the predator's eyes cut across his scar. "It's not a blade. It's a choice you haven't learned to make." The warlord stirred, metallic limbs flexing. Kazarvak raised a claw and they stilled. "Explain." "You've built an empire on dominance," Kane said, voice low but carrying. "You measure strength by what kneels before you. But the more you conquer, the weaker you become. You burn worlds to prove supremacy, and in doing so, you lose what those worlds could give." The predator's head shifted, inner eyes narrowing. "You speak riddles while your colonies choke on the borderlines." Kane's gaze did not waver. "I speak the truth you've hidden even from your own kind. Your bloodlines are collapsing. Too few, too similar. Each conquest feeds your hunger, but not your future." The hall darkened as the warlords exchanged uneasy glances. A ripple of static passed through the chamber. Not denial, but discomfort. Kazarvak rose slowly, towering over the dais. "And what does your fragile species know of our blood?" "Enough," Kane said. "We've seen your gene requisitions on occupied worlds. We've intercepted your sterilization protocols for rival breeds. You harvest strength like a farmer strips a field, and now the field is barren." For a heartbeat, the predator's frame froze, a stillness more telling than any roar. "You came here to threaten me with extinction?" Kazarvak asked at last. "No," Kane said. "You've already built it yourself. I came to offer you a way out." The warlords murmured, their tones sharp and uncertain. The predator silenced them with a single gesture. "And what miracle does the prey offer the hunter?" Kane stepped to the base of the dais. "Not surrender, not tribute, an agreement, voluntary exchange. You let us stand, and in return, you gain something no conquest will ever give you. Willing allies, genetic diversity, a chance to evolve beyond predation." The hall was quiet except for the faint pulse of the flagship's core. Kazarvak descended the final step until his shadow fell across Kane. "You would ask the apex to change its nature?" "I would ask it to survive," Kane replied. For the first time, the predator did not snarl or threaten. He studied the human, as one might study a reflection in dark water. "You carry no weapon," Kazarvak said slowly. "Yet you strike." "It's not the blade that matters," Kane said. "It's where you aim the silence before it falls." The meeting ended without a roar, without a blow. Kane was escorted back through the living corridors of the Gravemaw, the warlords watching from the shadows with unreadable stares. On the shuttle, Kethra's voice crackled through the secure line. "You're alive," she said, half accusation, half disbelief. He listened. Kane replied, fastening the restraint harness. "That doesn't mean he agrees." "No," Kane said, watching the Predator fleet recede into the void. But for the first time, he hesitated. Back on the station, the Council demanded a report. Kane gave them none. "Negotiations are ongoing," was all he said. Behind closed doors, some called for his removal. Others began to suspect the shape of his strategy, a war not of fleets, but of patience and revelation. As the artificial night deepened over the Council spires, a transmission pulsed through the secure channels. The Predator King had delayed his ultimatum. No colonies burned. No fleets advanced. Kane stood alone by the viewport, watching the distant shadow of the Gravemaw. His reflection in the glass was thin, scarred, unyielding. He whispered to no one in particular. "It doesn't take a sword to bring down a throne. Only the right truth at the right moment." 3 cycles passed. Each dawn brought a tense silence across the Council station. No fleets moved, no worlds burned. But silence, Kane knew, could crack under his own weight if left too long. He summoned Kethra to the strategy deck. She arrived with data shards and wary eyes. "They've halted their advance, yes," she said, "but stasis is not peace. Warlords grow restless when their claws stay idle." "They're waiting for him to decide," Kane replied. "And he's waiting for me to prove why restraint is worth more than a feast." "You intend to return?" she asked, reading the answer before it left his mouth. "Yes," Kane said. "Predators understand risk, but they respect resolve." The second meeting was nothing like the first. No ominous hall, no ring of silent warlords. Just a single chamber of obsidian plates that curved inward, designed to make even the tallest stand smaller than they were. Kazarvak stood at the far end, alone. His carapace no longer gleamed with ritual polish. It bore the matte dullness of one who has fought his own council. "You bring no guards," the king observed. "Nor do you," Kane said, "because this ends one way or another today." Kazarvak murmured. The Predator approached, each step deliberate. "You disrupted the rhythm of my war. You turned my hunger inward. My warlords demand blood, but they do not see the slow death you warned of." "I do." Kane folded his hands behind his back. "Then you already stand at the threshold of choice." Kazarvak's mandibles flexed, a gesture halfway between snarl and resignation. "They will not follow weakness." "Then don't give them weakness," Kane said. "Give them dominance through endurance. A predator that adapts outlives one that devours its own future." The alien's gaze sharpened. "You asked me to bow?" "No," Kane replied. "I asked you to acknowledge survival is the highest form of power. Let them see that the apex does not fear balance." For a moment, the chamber held only the low hum of the ship's pulse lines. Then, with a motion that felt both alien and ancient, Kazarvak lowered himself. His talons scraped the obsidian, his head bowed, not in submission, but in recognition. The gesture was brief, almost imperceptible, but it carried the weight of a civilization. "I bow to the truth you brought," he said. "Not to your species, not to your council, only to the law that even a hunter must yield when the hunt devours all." Kane exhaled slowly, feeling the tension of 100 sleepless nights unwind by a fraction. "You've just given your people a future," he said. "They will follow that." Kazarvak rose. "They will test it. They will question it. But they will not break it, because I have claimed it as my will." The treaty was forged not in grand halls, but in a narrow span of orbital dusk above a neutral moon. It contained no pomp, only a simple exchange. Resource corridors opened. Forced assimilation halted. Genetic purges ceased. In return, humanity offered technology to stabilize failing biomes and access to their trade networks. The warlords protested. They called it dilution. Some even whispered betrayal. But Kazarvak silenced them with a single phrase. "Predators that do not adapt are carrion by another name." When Kane returned to the station, The council rose in confused applause. Kethra met him at the docking bridge, her crest lowered in something that almost resembled respect. "You did it," she said. "No," Kane corrected, stepping past her toward the gallery of stars. "He did. I just reminded him of what he already feared." "You make it sound simple," she murmured. "It never is," Kane said, watching the dark silhouette of the grave maw drift into the lawful lanes of commerce instead of war. That night, alone in his quarters, he replayed the image, a creature bred to dominate, bending its massive frame to a man with nothing but words. It was not triumph he felt, but gravity, the weight of having shifted something older than history by the slightest measure. He recorded his report with measured clarity. Conflict averted. Predator acknowledged limitation of predation. Treaty signed under shared survival principle. Duration to be tested by time. He hesitated before closing the file. Then he added one line, meant for those who would read it long after he was gone. Fear did not bend him. Truth did. Weeks later, K's Yarvac sent a final transmission, short, encrypted, and free of ceremony. Hunter's instinct preserved. Hunt suspended. Future remains unwritten. Kane stared at the words and allowed himself a rare, small smile. In that understatement lay the real victory. Not peace eternal, but a breathing space wide enough for generations to decide what came next. He powered down the terminal, poured himself a drink, and whispered to the empty room, "Sometimes the sharpest blade is the one never drawn."